We are live. We are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we are live. And this morning here on Man Talk Live, I have a question for you. Are you a man who deeply feels that your presence no longer matters in your own home? Well, this morning here on Man Talk Live, I want to get into 7 tips and ways on how you can make your presence felt and mattered in your home as a man. And we're starting right now. And so if you're new here in the chat this morning, let me know where you're watching me from. Give me a hashtag team live in the chat. If you're watching the replay, give me a hashtag team replay as we get into this content this morning on 7 ways on how you can make your presence felt and mattered in your home as a man. And so let's pull up the content this morning as we're going to be talking about why your presence needs to matter as a man in your own home, that you come to after work and you've worked and you've provided, you've protected, you've did everything that is required that you believe as a man, but yet you still have this ongoing battle that you are dealing with, that sometimes you don't even let your own family know that you're dealing with, but it manifests itself in uncharacteristic ways that unfortunately can be unpleasant and uncomfortable for you and your family. And so I wanted to get into these tips on how you can do that as a man. And so, tip number one, the first way you can make your presence felt and mattered in the home as a man, to your family, to your wife and your children, is that you make a conscious decision to be a person who provides emotional support. Not just physical support, not just financial support, but you provide emotional support for your family. Because when you provide emotional support for your family, you are creating an atmosphere, you are communicating a message to your loved ones that you support them. You are supporting them not just with your words, you are supporting them not just with your actions, but you're supporting them emotionally. Now, for some of us as men, this can be a challenge to be able to provide emotional support, especially when we were growing up as children and we felt we didn't get the emotional support that we needed to be able to grow. We ultimately made it through childhood, through adolescence, through teenager, being a teenager, to ultimately transitioning into adulthood. But we may have did these things still feeling that we didn't get the full emotional support that we need from our parents, from our father, the man who was important to us in our lives, the one that we considered Superman in our life, the one that we admired, the one we looked to. He didn't provide that emotional support. And it's probably, I believe, because his father didn't provide the emotional support that he was looking for. He fathers, for the most part, were present in the home. They put food on the table in the home. They put clothes on our backs, but they were not in a position where they could provide the emotional support to their sons or to their daughters because their fathers didn't do it to them. I'm reminded of a scene in the movie Men of Honor with Cuban Gooding Jr. as he is now making the transition of leaving his home to now joining the U.S. Navy. And he's getting ready to get onto the bus and Mom's is there, dad is there, and mom's first embraces him, and mom shows all the love and the affections, and she's expressing the emotion to him, and he's comfortable in expressing emotion back to mom. And when it's time for dad, he comes, and he's struggling to be able to embrace his son. He's struggling with 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 the ability to be able to say, "I love you, and I'm going to miss you, and I want you to do well." You could see it in his demeanor. It's it's he's trying everything within his ability to do it, but he's not comfortable in doing it. And so sometimes the reason why we as men struggle in being able to provide the emotional support in the home that our family needs is because we're struggling with it, because we don't have a pattern of someone who can put before us on how we are to do it. And as a result, our wives, our spouses, our children don't feel the emotional support from us that they're looking for. And then as a result, over time, we feel like our presence doesn't matter in times of emotions that are being shared in a very positive and a constructive way, because we feel inadequate. We feel inadequate in being able to do it ourselves. The only time we feel comfortable in expressing our emotions is when we are frustrated as men. The only time we are comfortable in expressing our emotions is when we are displeased as men. For some of us, the only time that we're comfortable in expressing our emotions as men is when we are angry as men. And unfortunately, we then begin to tear things up and begin to break things, having an adult temper tantrum as a child would have a temper tantrum. And so as a result, we feel inadequate on how to provide emotional support. But if we are going to make our presence felt and mattered in the home with our children, and with our wife, the one that we love, we have to provide the emotional support. That means we got to be willing as men to learn how to manage our emotions. We have to be willing to express our emotions, and not just in negative and destructive ways, but in positive ways, by first just being able to communicate and say that we love, that we appreciate, and that we respect the people in our home. Providing emotional support in your home is a great way to others that your presence can be felt, not just monetarily, not just through clothes and through the food that you put on the table and the roof that you provide over the head, but being able to provide the emotional support through your presence. And so that's just one way that you can do it. A second way, a second way that you can build and make your presence felt in the home, that it matters to your family, is building stronger bonds, building a strong bond in your family. And these things that I'm sharing, yes, as a man, you have to be willing to initiate. You have to be willing to initiate and be the one who is initiating this type of thing, even though you may not know exactly how to do it. But you have to be the willing to have the willingness to want to do it. Unfortunately, too many times as men, when we lack the knowledge of something, when we don't have the abilities to do something, we unfortunately draw withdraw from others, because we don't want people to see that we are inadequate. We don't want people to see that we are coming up short, especially as men. We want to be able to show we can get the job done. You know what I'm saying, brothers? You know what I'm saying, brothers? This morning here on Man Talk Live, we want to be able to show those who are in our family, who love us, who look to us and depend on us, that we are not inadequate, that we are not coming up short, that we can perform, we can get the job done. But if we're coming up short in learning how to be able to build stronger bonds in our family, it's okay for us as men to say, I need some help. I need some help on how to do this. I need some help because children, they look to us as adults to be the one to initiate it. And just because the generation before us came up short does not mean that we continue with the excuse that it's not possible, that it can't be done in our own homes. And so it starts with educating ourselves. It starts with being willing to communicate and to talk with other men and to learn from other people who can show us how to build stronger bonds. And building a stronger bond with people that are important to you, and that you are important to them, it starts with being to spend time, spend time, quality time, not just, just time and just, okay, I'm here, I'm in the home, and the same time that you spend on Sunday night or Sunday afternoon to watch the 4 o'clock football game, and that can be a time that you can sacrifice, and to say, today I'm going to spend some time with my son and daughter at the park. I'm gonna spend some time with my son and my daughter, and go somewhere and just spend some quality time enjoying some food, and just having some time just to be in a library, and to pick some books up and to read. And if they're reading their favorite books that they feel that connects with them, you pick up a book and you start to read, and as you're all sitting there together, what you're doing is you're building a stronger bond between you and your children. And the same can be said for you and your wife. Going somewhere and just in a nice relaxed area where you could be at a Starbucks together, and you're having your toffee not latte, she's having her favorite venti beverage, and she's kind of on her laptop, and you're kind of on your phone, on social media. But from time to time, you take that moment to be able to communicate. You're building you're taking a moment to build stronger bonds. And as you do these things, it's going to help your presence matter. It's going to help over time that loved one, that family member, to feel that your presence matters, and it's been felt. It's been felt. Tip number 3, as men, how do we make our presence matter in the home where it's felt by those who love us? Being a role model. That's a word that, unfortunately, outside the home, that is given to athletes and given to entertainers and given to public figures. But I submit to you that the first real role model is you in the home as the man. You're the role model. You're the role model who sets the example of what a real strong worth ethic is. I remember growing up as a young boy, and watching my own father Not a perfect man, not a rich man, not a gifted or talented man, but what he had as a man was a strong worth ethic. And so I watched him going to work every day to his job, coming home at lunch, having a quick meal to eat, and then getting back to his job. I would sometimes in the neighborhood be playing, and he would be working in the neighborhood because he worked for the water department for the city of Detroit, and so sometimes they he would be working in the area so he could just walk over to the house and to get a quick bite to eat or go to the bathroom, and I could kind of watch and see from a distance him working hard, him working hard to provide for his family, him working hard to do his very best that he could do, though his job was a very difficult job, digging up dirt, digging up ditches to get to pipelines that may have needed to be repaired, or it may have water, the water pipes had bursted, and he had to fix them. And then he would come home. My mom would fix him something to eat. He would eat, and then he would go into the bathroom, and he would run his hot water, and he would take him a bath, and he would sit there. And then sometimes he would call me in the bathroom, and we would just kind of sit and talk. Don't kind of remember some of our conversations, but in those moments, he was my role model. He was my role model. How about you? What type of role model are you being to your son? What type of role model are you being to your daughter? What type of role model are you being for the next generation? If you want your presence to matter and to be felt in the home as a man, you got to be willing to be a role model. You got to be the example, and not leave it to a sports figure or entertainer like a Charles Barkley, because he ain't the role model. You can't leave it to a Stephen A. Smith. He ain't the role model. You're the role model. So if you want your presence to matter in your home, if you want your presence to be felt to your family, you got to be a role model. You don't have to be perfect. You ain't got to be super gifted or talented, but you just got to be willing to be yourself and the best version of yourself, and be willing to do the very best that you can in making an honest living, hardworking for your family as a role model. Hey, if you're getting great value out of this discussion this morning here on Man Talk Live, as we're talking about 7 ways on how you can make your presence felt and mattered in your home, do me a favor, click that like button for me, hit that share button, share this on your favorite social media platform that you particularly are on, and let someone know that Man Talk Live is live this morning here on Real Men Rising YouTube channel. Wherever you're watching me at this morning live, let me know in the chat where you're watching me from. And if you're watching the replay, you know what to do. Hashtag Team Replay. All right. So we talked about emotional support. We talked about building stronger bonds within your family. We talked about the importance of why you are a role model. Let's talk about now the importance of building and strengthening and improving communication. Being able to improve communication with your family. Growing up as a young man in my family's home, my mother and my father's home, one of the challenges early in my life that I struggled with was being able to understand what real communication was, particularly from my father. I struggled with being able to understand what real communication was with me and my father, because growing up as a young man, I got in trouble a lot. I got in trouble a lot as a young man. And so in most times I would hear my father communicate to me, and he communicated to me in not in a loving and an endearing way, but in a displeased way, in a way where he was always angry. His voice was always, he was the type of person when he talked, you would think he's yelling at you, but he's just a person who talked very loud. And so as a young boy, I didn't understand the difference of when a person is talking real loud versus if they're yelling at you. So it just came across to me as a young man that my father was always yelling at me, and he was not happy with some of the things that I'd done. And some of the things that they were justified, and why I was, you know, not being an obedient young man, a young boy. But when you hear that enough and it's constantly, it becomes discouraging. It becomes discouraging to a young man or a young girl. So much to the point for me that I found myself, when I got in trouble a lot, I always felt like that I was never good enough as a child. And so my way of escape was running away from home, running away from home, and just run and just go for walks. I would go for long walks. If my parents had took me to a particular park close by or far away from we going there through driving, no matter how near or how far that park was, I was willing to walk that far to that park just to get to that destination, to get away from m- my father yelling at me, or my father talking to me in a way with a tone that felt like he was angry and displeased with me. As I got older, as a young adult, I ended up displaying some of that same type of behavior, and people would say, "Why are you yelling? Why are you talking in that tone?" And it took me a while to understand that when you communicate when you communicate with your family, you need to know how to effectively communicate with them in a tone where they don't feel unsafe. You have to communicate in a tone with your son and your daughter where they don't feel like they're going to run into the other room and slam the door because they don't feel that they can be around you. Though it may not be your intent to communicate with that, but what we learn from our fathers, we end up unfortunately sometimes repeating with our own children. There is a commercial, a progressive commercial here on the East Coast, where the guy says, you know, we can help you with your home or car or auto insurance, but one of our primary goals is to help you not to become like, you know, your parents, you know, helping you not become like, you know, how your parents were in being homeowners, or being individuals who, I forget the whole jingle and twist of the thing, but helping new homeowners not fall to the whole process of being like their parents. It's a funny, you know, marketing strategy, but it kind of points to some things that you don't want to, habits you don't want to pick up that your parents have done, and you now are moving forward. But my point is being able to improve your communication. And so some of the ways that I had to begin to learn to improve my communication, um, was beginning to spend more time reading, not just reading anything, but reading. It said sometimes certain newspapers can be on a level of a fifth grader, and then they said, here in New York, that the New York Post is on a fifth grade level. I believe it is. The Daily News is. on a fifth to an eighth grade level. And then when you get to the New York Times or Wall Street, that's written more on a college level, on a more of a college level. And so sometimes you need to challenge yourself as a man to improve your reading levels of what you're reading so that it will help you to be able to be a better communicator with your family, to be a better communicator with your son or your daughter. And as you begin to improve your communication skills and how you are to communicate, that in times when you do feel like you're communicating and you feel like that your tone is a bit high, you can be able to adjust it and still get your point across. And they don't have to feel like that you're yelling at them. You don't have to communicate in such a tone or a way where they feel displeased with you. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? And so if you want your presence to matter in your home as a man, if you want your presence to be felt in your home, you got to be willing to improve your communication. And that means spending time learning, and reading. That means spending time and learning to communicate and talk back to them, and to find out why is it that you say certain things that causes them to turn you off, and begin to find ways to and repair, so that way when your communication comes across, it comes across clear, and it comes across with love, and it comes across without a person feeling threatened by you. There are times, yes, as men, we do miss it. I know I've, as a father, I've missed it. I've, you know, had certain expectations that I wanted my daughter to do, and things to do, and to be involved in, and then to find out it didn't work out that way, and it didn't turn out the way that I thought it should. And then when I find out about it, instead of me taking a deep breath, I begin to communicate my displeasure in such a way to her that, and it's only happened like a few times, but when I'm done communicating, she's left walking away in tears. And then I give it myself some time and I say, you know what, you could have said that different, Walter. You could have you could have went about a different way doing what you did. And once I kind of come back to myself, one of the first things I have had to do as a man, as a father, is to apologize. Now, that still doesn't mean that my position and what I felt was wrong. It's just I went about it the wrong way. And so I apologize. And then after apologizing, I affirm and let her know that I still love her and I still want the best for her. And that's something we have to do for our children and for our spouses. We love you. We want the best for you. And I will do my very best next time to be able to communicate to you in a more appropriate way. And when you take that position, when you take that posture, that's going to help you to improve your communication as a man, to help your presence to matter and to be felt. I want to say good morning to my good friend Tech Troublemaker, who's watching me live here on Man Talk Live. He says, preach it, preach it. Now, I'm not here to preach, Roy, just here to coach, just here to coach this morning, because we as men need coaching. We want to coach our young men and get on the gridiron field and to play football, but we need to be able to coach one another off the field. And when it comes to our presence being felt and mattered in the home, we need a lot of coaching. So I try my very best not to preach And if I'm and if that's the message that I'm communicating, it's coming across. It's please don't don't um view it from that lens, and I'll do my very best to adjust it so that it's coming from a coaching standpoint. But I appreciate you being here this morning on Man Talk Live. Let me know in the chat where you're watching me from. Give me a hashtag Team Alive. If you're watching the replay, give me a hashtag Team Replay. So we talked about making your presence felt and mattered through emotional support, building stronger bonds in the home, being a role model, improving communication in your home. The next point I want to talk about is the importance of providing support, being a support network, being a support network. In our world, our communities, and our neighborhoods, we see all different types of support networks. There are support networks for individuals who may be recovering from cancer, and there's that support network for others who are recovering, say, from breast cancer. There is a support network for individuals who may be dealing with um, Alzheimer's, and being where you have to be a caregiver. There's that support network. But I believe, as much as we have these different things to help to improve the quality of life for us and our families, as men, we have to be willing to be a support network to our family, to be a support network to our children, and to our spouse. And the same way, in the effort and the energy that other organizations are willing to provide that type of support and network, we have to be willing to do for them. And it starts with our presence. It starts with our presence. Our presence in the morning, greeting, our sons and our daughters before they get ready to leave for school. If you have the type of work schedule where you can be able to walk your son and daughter to the bus stop, be that support network and walk them to the bus. And I realize once they get to a certain grade level that they're not going to want you to be able to do that. Because once they get into, say, high school, they get to a certain age level, they want to be able to go with other young adults their age. Now, unless you got a car, they don't mind you taking them to the bus stop and dropping them off, because that means they ain't got to walk. Or if you got a car, they don't mind you dropping them off at school because they don't want to get on the bus. Okay. But even in that's a support network. That's a support network. So if you are able to do that in a loving and a respectful way, and creating a moment where it's just you and your son or your daughter, use that as a support networking time, providing them the support that they need to get to their destination. Be the support network to them, and when you're home, and seeing if you can help in any way with their homework, their schoolwork, and being willing to, if they need material or supplies for a school project, you be the one to say, hey, okay, while you're working on this, I'm going to go out here and get you your supplies that you need for your school project, for this thing that you're doing in music or in band, in theater or in art. I'll get you the needed supplies that you need for your project. You'll be the support network. Doing these things will let your children know that your presence matters to them. Your presence is felt by them. Not just being in the home, but you actively engaged what matters to them. These are the things that we as fathers have to do. And if our fathers didn't do it to us, we owe a responsibility to our children to make sure that what we were lacking, what we are felt inadequate and didn't get, we make sure that they get and more. So being a support network, also creating a sense of belonging, creating a sense of belonging in your home. People feel like they belong, that they're important, that they matter. The same feelings that you are struggling with sometimes as a man, where you feel like, do I really matter to my children? Do I really matter to my wife? Do I really matter to my family? Or is the only time I matter is when they want something from me, when they want things from me? Sometimes, let's be honest, as men, we can feel this way. Sometimes we feel like people want to make us into Santa Claus 365 days a year, day in a year. They want us to feel like we're Santa Claus. But when you create a sense of belonging, letting a person, you matter to me, you're important to me. That what you're giving, that what you're sowing, you're going to reap back. You're going to reap back in your own life. So a sense of belonging. And then lastly, be willing to celebrate milestones. Learn to celebrate milestones, even if they're big, but also if they're small. Even small milestones, celebrate them. Celebrate milestones when they bring the report card home, and okay, they may the son maybe not got all A's this report card marking, but last report card marking he had some D's and he had some C's. This report card marking he has some C pluses, he had some B's, and he had one A. Celebrate the milestone of progress. And when they get to the point where, okay, maybe they missed 2 or 3 days out of the school semester, now they get perfect attendance. Celebrate the milestone. And when they get to the point where they end up making the honor roll for the first time, celebrate the milestone. When you celebrate milestones in your children's lives or in your family's life, you're letting them know, you're communicating to them that they can see that your presence matters, because they're going to want more of that. They're going to want more of the acknowledgement. They're going to want, it's going to make them work harder to say, I want to do this again, because I like being celebrated by my parents. I love being celebrated by those that matter most to me. And so celebrate milestones. Hey, if you're getting great value out of this discussion this morning on 7 ways you can make your presence felt and mattered in the home as a man, do me a favor, click that like button for me. Share this on your favorite social media platform. And if you're new to Real Men Rising YouTube channel, where we help men to lead by love and integrity in the home, just like yourself, subscribe to the channel, click the alert notification button, and be a part of the communication of real men that are raising the standard of manhood, not just in their lives, but in the generation to come. So that's the content this morning that we've covered. Which of these tips have we shared that you need to be able to put into practice? If you need to just take one, which one are you going to pick? Start with one. Maybe you need to start with celebrating milestones. Let me know in the chat or in the comment section which you're going to start with, and let's keep the conversation going. Well, that's it for Man Talk Live this morning. Hey, continue to be a part of the conversation here on the Real Men Rising YouTube channel. We have some content on how to protect your peace as a man. And so if you're struggling with knowing how to protect your mental health and your peace, check out that latest video. If you're a person who's dealing with burnout right now, where you felt like you're just burnt out and you need to be able to overcome this time and this season of being burnt out, check out that video and more. And hey, see you in the next video. God bless.